Hey guys, it's Lemming Rush. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of my favorite light tank games I've played in an extremely long time. This would probably be it's one of those games that was absolutely perfect. I made a ton of plays, not resulting in a huge amount of damage, but they all worked together to win our team the game. And so I thought this game was absolutely phenomenal. All right, so to start off, we're on the map Karelia. Karelia, standard game. What I like to do on Karelia in my light tanks is I almost never commit to the donut. What I decide to do instead is I like to sit in this position right here and shoot at anyone who's driving into position. So as you can see, I'm sitting right here. I got lit, but I do get a shot into the AMX 50B, and that's a really good way to be useful right off the bat, as opposed to getting yourself killed by rushing donut. As you can see, if I'd rushed donut, I would have died because they had way more mediums than we did. So that was like, or that's a really good opening play for a light tank to make, because everything else will pretty much get you killed on this map. Now, what I decided to do after that, this is typically what you'll want to do in your light tanks, is you want to look at the map and then figure out where you can go to be the most useful. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be staying on the south, brawling with a 50B, an M48 Pat, and a 430U, and God knows what behind them. I'm deciding to go to the north because, well, I've got my one shot of damage. I want to go help win a flank that I think we can win, and obviously that's not the south when they're so aggressive. They've probably got a lot of enemies over there, and I just want to win the north first. That's the objective. So we're going to the north, and the beautiful thing about light tanks is you can do that because their speed is just so quick. You can very easily drive around the entire map. So that's the objective here. We put a shot into that 50B. Now we're going to go after this T10. The play I'm making right now is I'm going to be driving across an open field. Of course, this is a risky play, but I can manage, like I can do this because no one's going to spot me until I'm right on the T10. And of course, I managed to bounce the side of a T10, but it's one of those plays that I can make. And this is where I make the only mistake I made in this game. So what you can see I'm doing is we killed the T10. He's dead now, and what that does is it gives us north. We don't think anyone's here, because if they were, they would have been shooting at the Centurion 7-1 and the IS-7. They'd be spotted. So what I decide to do is I decide to try to go for shots on perhaps the 50B. Anyone in the mid, I want to spot them, and I also want to keep myself safe from any assholes who are sniping back here. So I'm going to this rock to do that. Now this is where, like I said, this is where I make the mistake. So what I've done is I'm sitting in C4, and you can see I'm prepared for people to be in the C6 area, and suddenly that Jagdtiger appears. It's like, I would never have expected a Jagdtiger to do that, and then, you know, he spots me, and that's when I start to get shot at because I got stuck on that rock, and this is where I kind of get lucky here because the 50B bounces, misses, and then bounces again, and that... I should be a one-shot after this. That was the only time I got lucky in this game, and to be fair, like, who the hell expects a Jagdtiger to be driving through the mid? That's not a play that I expected, so that was kind of a mistake and kind of not at the same time. So regardless, I fell back, that worked out. What I'm deciding to do next is I'm going to look for shots on TDs. I also, because I have such high view range, I've done 1800 spotting damage, as you can see. I'm looking for to see if I can spot any of their campers, because that will allow this Centurion Action X and potentially even this IS-7 to push into their base. We need to clear out their TDs before that happens. Now, after a while, I noticed that that's not happening. I actually end up spotting an E75, and that makes me like 100% confident that we're not going to be able to successfully push into their base when they've got as many unspotted as they do. If you take a look at the enemy team lineup, they've got like, well, a Leopard 1 who's unspotted for sure, and so on. Like, they've got a lot of tanks who are unspotted, and then plus those campers. So it's not going to work if we push into their base. So I decide to fall back. The key in light tanks is to wait until you have an opportunity to be useful instead of trying to force it, because you're a light tank. You're not going to force anything. So there's that. Now, what I decide to do is I know they've got a light tank in the mid. I also know they have a T-54 lightweight unspotted. There's the 54 lightweight. So I assumed he was probably camping in base, preparing to defend against our A-line push. Once he got spotted in the mid, I realized that probably a lot of things would happen at once. So this 54 lightweight, I'm looking for shots on him. Our Foch 155 dies, and that creates an opening for the RU-251 or another light tank to go for Artie. Now, as you can see, I'm putting shots into this 54 lightweight. That a couple shots in this because RNG says no, but basically what's going to happen is I'm going to work until I can put 1 or 2 shots into the 54 lightweight. I want to shoot him so he stops spotting my IS-7 and Centurion 7-1, and then I know that this RU-251, he's got nothing stopping him, so he's probably going to drive through the mid of the map and go for Artie. So in a couple seconds here, once this 54 lightweight backs off, I'm going to go make a play to try to counter that RU-251, because I suspect that the RU is going to be going for Artie because, like I said, there's nothing stopping him. If he's not an idiot, he'll notice that he won't get spotted as that's happening. So that's the play I decide to make. Now I get lit as I run away. Obviously getting shot at from anyone on this ridge is a threat. And then, as you can see, it's not a problem though. Like, I was driving full speed and it was such a great distance that I wasn't too worried. And then, as you can see, that RU indeed was going back to base, and he's absolutely destroying this FV right here. So I decide to come over to here, help out the FV. Our Artie dies. I personally don't mind. The biggest problem is that we're 2 tanks down, and we've got 2 tanks who are in positions that are kind of precarious. So the next play, and this is where I think light tanks start to shine, is when there's about 7 tanks left on either team, is going to be to retake the mid. So what happens is when enemy light tanks go for Artie and die, it creates an opening, right? There's an opening in the mid right now because that RU is not clogging it. He's not going to spot me if I try to make this play. And so I'm able to get behind this 54 lightweight, flank him, and that's going to allow me to free up the IS-7 and the Centurion 7-1, and there's going to be nothing this guy can do about it. So I get behind him, I make sure that shot fully aims, and I knew he'll spot me because the shell has travel time, of course, so he's going to spot me in the gap after I shoot and before he dies. So I hug that rock, and then I move because I see the Artie, and what I want to do is I want to help out this flank right here. So what's happening right now is they've got multiple vehicles on full HP. They've got the M53, the 257, and the Artie, and they're actually going to have a T10 join them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flank them. Now the goal here isn't to do damage, it's literally just to distract them. So my 2 tanks in the south kind of they're freed up a bit because I'll be a distraction. So what I do is I focus down the lowest HP in this situation. You'll notice the M48 Patton notices me. I put a shot into him. It bounces off his lower plate because it wasn't going where I aimed it. And now I'm not going to engage the M48 Patton because obviously that guy's focusing me down. And so I then decide to focus on this 257, which allows this 50 TP to actually move up, and that's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. So what I'm doing when I engage this guy is I'm relying on the accuracy of this vehicle. That was actually a bit of a mistake. It is lucky I haven't been clicked here. I'm just going to point that out there. And you can see I'm just sort of relying on his inaccuracy, hoping that he'll miss my turret. That worked out perfectly, as you can see. And then I was hoping that I could just pin his upper front plate, which didn't end up working out. Now, I would have stayed here if that M48 Patton hadn't hit me, but obviously he shot me, and that turns me into a one-shot for the T10. The best play for this T10 right now is to YOLO me, right? And, like, obviously, he's full HP, he can just drive into me and get rid of me, and that would be the perfect play for him to make. So what I decide, and that's actually a play that most people would make anyways, even if they're bad players, because they see a one-shot light tank and they want the kill. And so what I decide to do is I decide to run away from the T10, who's probably chasing me down. And once again, because the entire enemy team is spotted, there's a vacuum, right? They've got probably an RD in A0, maybe A9, maybe B0, and that allows me to drive through the open because no one's going to spot me and get behind the entire enemy team who's pushing into my IS-7, and they did manage to kill that Centurion 7-1. So what I decide to do is I decide to sit out of spotting range. I make sure I'm not going to get spotted by Artie, of course, because that's a big deal. If you get spotted, they'll just turn around and one-shot me. So I make sure I'm not going to get spotted. I put a shot into that Jagdtiger, flank him, and then the FV manages to push onto that Leopard, and now we're behind them, and that's going to win us the northern flank of the game, and then we'll be able to go kill Artie. Now, the reason I didn't rush and kill... There's another reason to not rush and go kill Artie right away. It's because our Artie is A, really good at defending himself, and B, if I was spotted in this area, what do you think the T10 and the M48 Patton would do? They would immediately come back to base to reset the cap. So I waited a bit, I let them sort of commit more to the south, and that frees me up to go after the Artie without fear of getting flanked by an M48 Patton because they're probably chasing down that 50 TP. So I put a shot into the Artie, and then what I decide to do is I decide to get unlit because the way this ground works... Let me pause this. There's a bit of a ridge here that you can use to hide yourself from any Artie players who are in this location. This guy's a one-shot, so what I do is I assume I'm going to kill him. You can see I kind of drive into the open, but it low rolls, of course. And I obviously had a backup plan. I drove into the dip, made him fire. That reduced the chances that he would hit me significantly. That allows me to pick up my 5th kill. And now we're in a position where we've flanked the enemy team, but the problem is they've got an M48 Patton and a T10, and the T10's probably going to be able to kill that 50 TP. So what I decide to do is I think that M48 Patton's probably coming back to base. So I check, right? I check the 0 line to make sure he's not through there. And then I back up and I try to spot both at once. I want to check this and this to make sure the M48 Patton isn't coming up the mid. And then what I decide to do, as opposed to going for the Top Gun and risk losing the game, because, well, look, the IS-7's a two-shot, the FV4005 was really low HP if I recalled. I decide to get on cap, and what that forces the enemy team to do is it forces that M48 Patton to come back to base, forces it puts pressure on that T10, so he's more likely to make a mistake. And if the M48 Patton comes through the zero line, he obviously isn't coming through the mid because the IS-7 would be getting shot by now. It gives the IS-7 easy side shots on the F48 Patton, and that allows us to secure the game. So getting on cap just made it really easy for that IS-7 to get the kill, and that's how I played this one. So let's go take a look at the end plates, and we'll go from there. Alright, so as you can see, that was 5,211 XP, 83,000 credits. In the end, we did 3,177 damage, got 5 kills, came first place on the team for XP. We also managed 2,904 spotting damage, and we did manage to make credits. That's because I was using a personal reserve. Without a personal reserve, I probably would have lost credits, but that's just the way it is. 25 shots fired, 20 of them hit, 16 of them penned. That's the way of the 54 lightweight. It's pretty inaccurate, so you have to get close to your enemies or you're going to miss a lot, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles. So that's the game. If you want to see more, be sure to hit the like and the subscribe button, and I hope to see you around. Later, guys. Bye-bye.